The day my life changed forever started with a simple envelope. It was thick, cream-colored, and sealed with gold wax. My hands were shaking when I opened it, because I already knew what it contained. My grandmother had passed away 3 months earlier, and after weeks of legal formalities, the final documents had arrived. Inside was confirmation of a $500,000 gift she had left in my name. Not a loan, not a shared inheritance, a direct gift. My grandmother and I had always been close. While my parents were busy chasing status, appearances, and their own ambitions, she was the one who sat with me at the kitchen table helping with homework. She was the one who listened when I cried after being rejected from my dream college. She believed in me long before I believed in myself. And now, even in death, she had proven that belief. I was 26 years old, working 2 part-time jobs, drowning in student debt, and barely able to afford rent. That $500,000 wasn't just money. It was freedom. It meant I could pay off my loans, start the small design business I had always dreamed of, maybe even buy a modest home someday. But I made one mistake. I told my parents. At first, they reacted with shock. My mother's eyes widened dramatically. $500,000, she whispered. My father leaned back in his chair, silent. Too silent. Then came the smiles, the forced congratulations, the hugs that felt more like calculations than affection. Within a week, the tone changed. You know, my mother began one evening, stirring her tea slowly, families should share blessings. I blinked. It's not a lottery win. Grandma left it to me. My father cleared his throat. Technically, she left it to you, yes. But we are your parents. We raised you. I felt the first crack of unease. I didn't ask to be born, I said carefully. And Grandma chose to give it to me. That's when my father's expression hardened. You're being selfish. The request started small. We just need $50,000 to cover some investments. Your mother's car is falling apart. You could at least pay off our credit cards. Each time, I said no. Not angrily, not rudely, just firmly. The pressure intensified. Daily calls, emotional manipulation, stories about sacrifices they'd made, comparisons to other children who took care of their parents. Then one night, my mother called in tears. Your father is under so much stress, she sobbed. If something happens to him, it will be on you. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about help. It was about control. 2 weeks later, they invited me to dinner. It's time we move past this tension, my father said over the phone. We're family. I almost didn't go. Something felt wrong. But a part of me still hoped they would understand. Their house looked the same as always. Immaculate. Cold. Dinner was quiet. Too polite. Too staged. After dessert, my father placed a folder on the table. Before you leave, he said calmly, we need you to sign something. My stomach tightened. What is it? A simple family agreement, my mother said sweetly. I opened the folder. It wasn't simple. It was a legally drafted document transferring $400,000 of my inheritance into a joint family investment account, controlled by my parents. My hands went cold. I'm not signing this. My father's chair scraped loudly against the floor as he stood. You will. No, I repeated, my voice shaking but steady. That's when my mother reached for her phone. Sign the check, she said quietly, her sweetness gone. Or we call 911. I stared at her, confused. What? My father's face twisted into something I had never seen before. We tell them you stole from us. We tell them you're unstable. That you threatened us. My heart slammed against my ribs. You wouldn't. Try. Us. For a split second, panic flooded me. Could they really do this? Could they destroy my reputation out of greed? But then something inside me clicked. I looked around the dining room. At the smoke detector on the ceiling. At the small black dot in the corner. The home security camera my father had proudly installed last year. And I remembered something else. I had prepared. After weeks of manipulation, I had started recording every phone call. Saving every threatening text message. Screenshotting everything. And tonight, before stepping inside, I had turned on the voice recorder app on my phone. I slowly placed the folder back on the table. Go ahead, I said calmly. Call 911. Silence. My mother's hand froze midair. My father frowned. You think we won't? He snapped. I know you won't, I replied. Why? Because I've recorded everything. The color drained from their faces. Every call, every threat, and right now, this conversation is being recorded too. My father lunged forward, trying to grab my phone. I stepped back, and if you touch me, I said, louder now, that will be on record too. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in their eyes. Not parental authority, not disappointment, fear. You're bluffing, my mother whispered. Am I? I reached into my bag and pulled out printed screenshots of their messages. Messages like, if you don't transfer the money, don't bother calling us your parents. You owe us, sign it or you'll regret it. I laid them on the table. I spoke to a lawyer last week, I continued. Attempting to coerce someone into signing over money. That's extortion. My father sank back into his chair. This is insane, he muttered. No, I said quietly. What's insane is threatening your own daughter over money. The room felt heavy. For years, I had played the obedient child. The peacemaker. The one who absorbed blame to keep things calm. Not anymore. I won't give you $1, I said firmly. And if this continues, I will take legal action. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they weren't strategic. You're tearing this family apart. I shook my head. No, money didn't tear us apart. Greed did. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. Wait, my father called out. I paused but didn't turn around. Don't walk out like this. I finally faced them. You gave me a choice, I said. Sign the check or you call 911. I opened the door. I'm choosing myself. And I left. The next morning, I met with my lawyer officially. We sent a formal cease and desist letter warning them against further harassment. The threats stopped. The calls stopped. The silence that followed was loud, but peaceful. With the money, I paid off every cent of my student debt. I invested wisely. I started my design business from a small rented office. It wasn't easy. There were months of doubt. Long nights. Financial fears. But every success felt earned. 3 years later, my company is thriving. I employ 6 people. I recently purchased my first home, modest, but mine. As for my parents, we don't speak. Sometimes people ask if I regret it, if I miss them, and the honest answer is complicated. I don't miss manipulation. I don't miss guilt. I don't miss being valued only when I'm useful. What I miss is the idea of parents who love without conditions. But I learned something invaluable through all of this. Boundaries are not betrayal. Protecting yourself is not selfish. And sometimes, the biggest trap isn't the one others set for you, it's the one you stay in because you're afraid to walk away. The night they told me to sign the check or they'd call 911, they thought fear would control me. They were wrong. That night, I stopped being their obedient daughter. And I became my own protector. If you ever find yourself pressured, manipulated, or threatened over money, even by family, remember this. Love does not come with ultimatums. And your future is worth defending. Because sometimes, the greatest inheritance isn't the money. It's the strength you discover when you refuse to sign away your worth. 3 days after I walked out of my parents' house, my phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. Unknown number. I stared at it in the dark, my heart pounding. For a second, I considered ignoring it. But something told me not to. Hello. Silence. Then my father's voice. You really think you've won? I didn't respond. You humiliated us, he continued. Do you know what your aunt said? Do you know what people are saying? This isn't about people, I said quietly. It's about you trying to extort me. He scoffed. Big words now. Lawyer words. You've changed. No, I replied. I've grown. He hung up. That was the last direct call I received. But the real storm hadn't even started. Within a week, relatives began reaching out. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to check in. My aunt sent a long message about family unity. An uncle called to say I was being dramatic, and that my parents were heartbroken. It didn't take long to realize a narrative had been crafted. According to them, I had become greedy, ungrateful, power-hungry. The story being told was simple. I had inherited money and refused to help the parents who sacrificed everything for me. What wasn't mentioned? The threats, the document, the sign the check or we call 911. I understood then that this was their new strategy. If intimidation didn't work, reputation destruction would. For 2 days, I spiraled. Maybe I should just give them something. Maybe $50,000 would calm everything down. Maybe peace was worth a price. But then I replayed the recording. My mother's cold voice, my father's threat, and I felt the same clarity I felt that night. If I paid them, it wouldn't end. It would begin. So instead of folding, I strengthened my position. I changed my phone number. I adjusted my privacy settings on every social media account. I informed close friends about what had happened, not to seek validation, but to ensure truth existed somewhere beyond the rumor mill. And then I did something that surprised even me. I wrote my parents a letter. Not to apologize, not to negotiate, to set terms. I explained that any further harassment, directly or indirectly, would result in legal action. That spreading false claims about my mental stability or financial misconduct constituted defamation. That I had documentation, but I also wrote something else. I am willing to have a relationship, I wrote, if it is built on respect, not control. I mailed it certified. They never responded. Instead, my mother posted a vague message online. Sometimes children forget who fed them when they were helpless. It received dozens of sympathetic comments. I didn't respond, because here's what I began to understand. Silence is power when you're not hiding, but protecting peace. Months passed. My lawyer confirmed there had been no attempts to challenge the inheritance legally. They had no grounds. The will was airtight. Still, I felt uneasy. Then one afternoon, I received a call from my bank's fraud department. There was an attempt to inquire about your account details, the representative said. The caller claimed to be a parent assisting with a transfer. My stomach dropped. They had basic information, she continued. Your date of birth, old address, but they failed security verification. I knew instantly. My parents. I felt anger, but also something deeper. Disappointment. Even after everything, they still believed they were entitled. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Permanently. It wasn't just about protecting money anymore. It was about protecting my identity. I filed an official fraud alert with all major credit bureaus. I froze my credit. I updated every security question to answers only I would know. And then I made a decision that scared me, but felt right. I moved. Not across the country. Just far enough to create physical distance. A new apartment. A new environment. A fresh start. With distance came clarity. For the first time in my life, I began therapy. Not because I was unstable, as they had threatened to claim, but because I needed to unpack something deeper. Why had their approval mattered so much? Why did guilt hit so hard, even when I knew I was right? Week after week, I peeled back layers. I realized my childhood had been built on conditional affection. Love when I performed, criticism when I resisted, financial control used as leverage. The inheritance hadn't created dysfunction. It had exposed it, and exposure feels like betrayal to people who benefit from silence. About a year after the confrontation, my business officially launched. It started small, freelance design projects, branding packages, late nights at my kitchen table. But slowly, referrals grew. Clients stayed, revenue stabilized. The first time I paid myself a steady monthly salary, I cried. Not because of the amount. Because it was mine, built without coercion, without guilt, without someone hovering, waiting to claim a percentage. 2 years in, something unexpected happened. My mother emailed me. The subject line was simple: we need to talk. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened it. No apology. No acknowledgement of the threats. Just an update about my father's health issues and rising medical bills. And then the sentence: if you have any heart left, you'll help. I closed my laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt tired. That old reflex, the one that wanted to fix everything, flickered. But therapy had taught me something crucial. Compassion does not require self-sacrifice. I replied the next day. I'm sorry to hear about Dad's health. I truly hope he recovers. I am not able to provide financial assistance. If you would like to rebuild a relationship based on accountability and respect, I am open to a mediated conversation. The response came within hours. You've changed beyond recognition. Maybe I had, and maybe that was the point. Months passed again. No contact. No more indirect messages through relatives. Life became quieter, richer, not just financially, but emotionally. I built friendships that felt mutual. I dated someone who respected boundaries instead of testing them. I learned that love without ultimatums exists. Then, almost 3 years after that night, I received a letter. Handwritten, from my father. My hands trembled as I opened it. He didn't apologize outright, but for the first time, there was no blame. He wrote about pride, about fear of losing control as he aged, about feeling left behind when I became financially independent. One sentence stood out: I didn't know how to be your father if I wasn't the one in charge. I read it 3 times. It wasn't redemption, but it was honesty. For days, I debated responding. Finally, I suggested one thing: family counseling. To my surprise, he agreed. The first session was awkward, tense. My mother remained defensive, but something had shifted. They weren't threatening anymore. They were smaller, older, human. Healing didn't happen overnight. Trust doesn't rebuild because someone writes a letter. But boundaries remained firm. No financial discussions. No entitlement. If the topic surfaced, the session ended. Slowly, painfully, conversations began to include things other than money. Memories, regrets, awkward laughter. I learned something profound through that process. Sometimes people lash out not just from greed, but from fear of irrelevance. My independence had threatened their identity. But that didn't excuse their actions. It just explained them. Today, my relationship with my parents is cautious but civil. We meet occasionally. We talk about neutral topics. They have never asked for money again. And I have never offered. The $500,000 gift did more than change my financial future. It forced every hidden dynamic into the light. It showed me who respected me when I had power, and who only valued me when I was dependent. It taught me that boundaries will always feel like betrayal to those who benefited from your lack of them. And it proved something else. When they said, "Sign the check or we call 911, they believed fear would trap me. Instead, it freed me. Not just from their control, but from the belief that love must be earned through sacrifice. If you're watching this and facing pressure from family over money, inheritance, or success, understand this. You can love someone and still say no. You can wish them well and still refuse to fund their choices. You can hope they heal and still protect yourself. And if they threaten you, document everything. Seek legal advice. Protect your credit. Protect your peace. Because the greatest trap isn't losing money. It's losing yourself trying to keep everyone else comfortable. That night at the dining table, I thought I was defending $500,000. In reality, I was defending my future. And I would make the same choice again. Every single time.